Hi, today we are with Kerry Mackin, and she is the Executive Director of Hi, today we are with Kerry Mackin, and she is the Executive Director of the Ipswich Watershed Association. And I'd like to introduce you to Kerry. Hello, Kerry.
Hi, how are you today, Catherine?
Could you tell us a little about what the Ipswich Watershed Association actually is doing?
Sure. We're a nonprofit organization. We're celebrating our 35th year right now, and our purpose is to protect the Ipswich River, which is down the hill behind us here. And so we do a lot of work with volunteers, we work with communities, we work with individuals, businesses, and state agencies and federal agencies to do whatever needs to happen to keep the river clean and to keep enough water in the river to sustain the fish and other animals that depend on it.
Well, I think I was sharing this story earlier today with you. When I first moved into town with my husband about 20 years ago, we have horses. And we noticed, because we're on the Ipswich River, that every summer, as we would go across, there would be some point in the summer when the Ipswich River literally disappeared, and there'd be small pockets of water where the herons and the egrets could just go and pick the last remaining of the fish out of the pockets. But basically, the water disappeared. And then I noticed about 6, 7, 8 years ago, all of a sudden we started having water all through the summer. Have you got anything to do with that?
Yes, it's been our major focus for the last 15, 16 years is to try to get water back in the river. The river is used widely as a source of public water supply by 14 communities, and as a result, it's a fairly small river, and that's a lot of water that gets taken out of it on a daily basis. So we've worked really hard to push the state agencies that manage the river into doing a better job of protecting it from having too much water taken out. And a lot of the communities are really cooperating now by doing a better job with water conservation, and a lot of the individuals and landowners and businesses and such are also taking water conservation more seriously and helping us to save the river that way.
Well, one of the purposes of being here, besides the fact we are in Ipswich and the Ipswich River is such a valuable resource, is we're here to understand, as inhabitants of Ipswich, as homeowners, what it is that we can do to help protect our valuable river. And that's what our adventure is for the day.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Today we're in front of a rain garden, and Kerry's going to explain to you why we even have rain gardens on this property and why you might want to have one on your property as well.
Yeah, the rain garden is here to help us solve some drainage problems that were here before we owned the property, and we had water coming off the driveway and heading toward the house and bringing pollutants toward the river, and we wanted to solve both those problems. So the rain garden creates a little bowl-shaped area where the water collects, and we have it planted with mostly native plants so that the native plants can survive in a range of conditions, including wet and dry conditions. They're pretty well adapted to this climate. So we have plants like this beautiful winterberry holly, which is a great wildlife plant as well. So it offers benefits, it helps clean the water, it reduces runoff, and solves a lot of problems.
Native plants not only are suited for the environment, which means that they take less labor for the person that's putting them in, but they also feed the native species, the wildlife species of this area. In this case, we're looking at the winterberry, and we can see that this bush is full of berries that's going to nurture and feed our native birds that will be here for this winter. We also have many other species of native plants here. We have the coneflower, echinacea. We have got the red-twigged variegated dogwood. We've got turtlehead. Turtlehead is a wonderful native and perennial flower that is actually good for a host plant for some butterflies. And we see that we have the chocolate Joe Pye weed over here, and it is a nectar plant as well as a larval plant for butterflies as well.
Yeah, here I am at our permeable paving parking lot. We put this in for a similar reason, to reduce runoff and to create better drainage on the property. And we actually did this ourselves with volunteers, all of whom had no experience installing this type of paving. So you can see it was pretty well done given how little we knew about what we were doing. Underneath is a layer of crushed gravel, and it's packed in between the pavers with gravel as well. And these pavers are actually made of a concrete that allows water to seep through them. So it has excellent drainage characteristics. And one of the unexpected benefits is that the snow disappears off this parking area really quickly in the winter, which was something we didn't even know was going to be a benefit, but we're really happy about that too. So it's something that a homeowner could do on their own property instead of having a paved driveway, for example. All right, we're standing here in our little demonstration lawn, which we planted last September, I think it was. And the idea of this lawn is to have a lawn which you don't water, basically. So we planted it with fine fescues that are very drought tolerant, and we haven't watered it. And here it is looking really good a year later. So that's our first demonstration that shows people how they can have a really nice, good-looking lawn without using water or chemicals on it on any regular basis. Another demonstration project is behind me here. The blue cistern that you see collects water from the drain. It collects water from the roof, which are captured in a drain pipe, and the drain pipe feeds into the cistern. And that water, that cistern's about 200 gallons, and the water can be used if you want to water your garden. It's an easy way to do it, and it's inexpensive. Once you've got it set up, it's free water, basically, for the life of the cistern. So this is another project that anyone can do in their own property. You can also use a rain barrel, which is a smaller version of the same idea, to collect water that you can use for your garden. Okay, we have a couple of other features of our outdoor water savings activities and runoff reducing activities. One is that we've used native plants like the asters that you see behind me here, and those attract wildlife. This is a good time of the year to see monarch butterflies, which rely on these plants before they start their migrations. And it's also a plant that's well adapted to the climate here, so it doesn't need excess watering. It just can live on the water that's available from rainfall. And then if you look behind me up on the roof, you'll see what's called a roof garden, and it's a small area here as a demonstration project to show you what a roof garden looks like. And these are plants that are very well adapted to be able to tolerate very dry conditions. And the idea of the roof garden is that it reduces the runoff from the roof so that you don't have as much water coming off the roof. That water doesn't turn into runoff that causes pollution downstream. So we reduce runoff, and in some cases it can provide other benefits too, but that's the reason that we put the roof garden in. And these are all projects that you can do in your own yard. They're not terribly expensive, and there are things that can really help manage water in a more healthy way from the standpoint of the river.
I noticed that you have absolutely beautiful trails here right next to the river.
Yeah, we're really lucky to have been given this wonderful property, which was given to us by Dr. Bob Petronic, and it had a lot of trails on it previously from its prior uses 100 years ago, but we also installed several new trails. So the property is a wonderful place to walk. There's great wildlife. We actually have been seeing a pileated woodpecker recently on the property. We've seen some other great birds. We saw a red fox the other day. So it's a wonderful place, and yeah, people are welcome to come here.
What are your hours, and how would they just find, how would they find this place? It's not actually easy to find.
Our hours, the office is open generally 8 till 4 on weekdays, although Friday we're usually only here in the mornings. But the property is open even on the weekends, even though we are not here. And how you find it, it's just off Route 1A, which is County Road, and on the way toward Hamilton, if you're heading from downtown Ipswich, it's on the right, just past Masconomet Road. The number is 143 County Road, and our sign is out by the road. And you can drive down the driveway, just head straight all the way down. It's a pretty long driveway, and you'll find us at the end.
And then you can park on the permeable parking lot.
That's right. That's right.
Well, here we are in front of the Ipswich River, and we're going to be talking about what a river is and what the definition is, and then we're going to talk about when rivers started to be protected, because they weren't protected until very recently.
Thanks. Yeah, the Ipswich River, rivers in Massachusetts, we're talking about flowing water bodies that flow from source to sea or from source into a lake or another river. So it's a continuously flowing water body, flows throughout the year, and that distinguishes it from what are called intermittent streams. Intermittent streams are streams that dry up part of the year on a typical year, not even during a drought. So that's what distinguishes a river from an intermittent stream in Massachusetts under the law.
And when exactly were rivers started to be protected? I know it's really been recently.
Yeah, I think the Rivers Protection Act was passed in 1996, so it's only 15 years ago. And this was a law that was kind of long needed, but took forever to finally get it passed, but eventually it was, and it's administered in a similar way to the Wetlands Protection Act, so the two laws kind of go hand in hand with each other. And essentially what that law does is it establishes a riverfront area which is 200 feet from the bank, or roughly the bank of the river, up gradient, and that area is subject to regulation, and if you want to work in that area, you need to have a permit from the local conservation commission.
One of the things that I've noticed that we can do as homeowners and homemakers, especially if you have an area with gardens or grass, is to eradicate and not use any chemicals whatsoever. Kerry's going to explain to you why exactly that's important.
Yeah, the use of chemicals, I mean, the chemicals basically end up in our rivers and our streams and our ponds and lakes, and they cause problems. They either kill organisms directly, or they cause fertilizers, cause overgrowth of vegetation that ends up causing a loss of oxygen for the creatures that need that in the river. So, there's no reason really to even be using chemicals on our gardens. If you use organic materials like compost, you really don't need chemicals. The organics are much healthier for the garden, and they also have other properties, like they act kind of like sponges, so they hold water well. So it's really a much better way to go to stick with the organic route rather than using chemicals on your garden. And I also want to put a plug in for, we've talked about saving water outdoors, and you can also help save the river by saving water indoors too. So, replace your old shower heads with water efficient ones, replace the old toilets with the what are called high efficiency toilets. If you're in the market for a new washing machine, make sure that it's one that uses water as efficiently as possible. Those things really add up. They make a difference. We have 330,000 people who use water from the Ipswich River, and if each one of those people could save 10 gallons a day off the water that they're using now, it would really, really add up and make a big difference.
Well, I've heard a lot recently, both reading in the paper, hearing it on the news, that what we put in our toilets, what we flush down our toilets, what we flush down our sinks and our drains, also makes a big difference on the quality of our rivers, and not only that, but our oceans as well.
Oh, absolutely. Household cleaning products actually can be quite damaging, and they also, they're not the greatest thing for septic systems in general as well. So you can actually prolong the longevity of your septic system by using more natural products for cleaning. And that's fairly easy to do, actually. If you were to go online and Google a search for household cleaning products that are natural, you could find the information you need quite easily.
I also hear that people are flushing a lot of their used and unused drugs, pharmaceuticals, down their toilets, and that's ending up not only in our water but in our fishes that we eat.
Yeah, the issue of pharmaceuticals and also cosmetics and cleaning, soaps and things like that that have chemicals in them, those tend to end up in the water supply. They're not that easy to remove by typical treatment methods, so they end up going into the groundwater and eventually into the rivers, and they have devastating impacts on fish and amphibians and other creatures. So in terms of pharmaceuticals, don't flush them. Just, if you have unused ones, return them to the pharmacy, but they shouldn't go into the toilet or down the drain.
Well, you've been very helpful as a homeowner. I know that now I can save on water by what I plant, both in my garden as well as what type of grass, that there's all sorts of ways I can gather water. And also I know now that I can make sure I don't use chemicals outside and I'm not using them inside and flushing them down. What else can I do as an inhabitant of Ipswich? How can I help the Ipswich River Watershed Association and their wonderful goal of keeping our rivers clean and flowing?
Our theory is that if you go out and enjoy this river, you can't help but want to protect it because it's so beautiful. The other thing is that we have quite a number of volunteer opportunities. We have volunteer water quality monitors who are trained to take samples from the river once a month. And that program has been going on for almost 15 years now. Some of our monitors have been with it since the very beginning, so it's a great program. We also have a volunteer herring count that happens each spring from April to the end of May. And that takes place right here in the town of Ipswich, and we use volunteers. We usually have about 50 volunteers for that project. And there's other things, we always can use help with those very same gardens that we were looking at earlier, maintaining the gardens and that sort of thing. So if that's something you enjoy, please contact our office. Our website, by the way, is www.ipswichriver.org, and you find us in the phone book too, but we'd love to have volunteers.
And what is your telephone number, Kerry?
It's 978-412-8200.
Thank you. You've been absolutely delightful. I've learned so much, and you have a beautiful place here. May you continue doing the great work that you have, not only for the Ipswich River, but for all of the people that get to enjoy the Ipswich River in its many uses. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.